FaZe and Liquid are back on their BS. I feel like you know it's going badly for a team if they make a roster move mid-season, except for maybe Spirit, who had to do it for other reasons. But it is Twistzz making a shock FaZe return. They have not said who this is for yet, so we're waiting. Also, by the way, I've been doing some casting lately. That's why there's the green screen. Ignore that. I'm not going to use that. I can't be asked. But yeah, Twistzz back to FaZe, and you can see basically he's saying he feels like he's coming home, and it's interesting. They dug up the quotes on Twistzz. They said initially he wanted to play with a younger leader, with a younger core. That's why he left FaZe to go back to Liquid. Well, I mean, Carrigan's only got older. You know, Carrigan's only got older. We'll see if he's the one that goes. We're waiting on that front. But initially, I was going to maybe say that, like, oh, Liquid are maybe doing something. Like, yesterday, they took Furia actually really close. I thought this was like an okay result. I was like, damn, maybe Liquid are going to start turning the corner a bit. Twistzz playing well, Naf looking really good. I don't know what's happened to Nerds. That's been a real shame. But still, I was thinking maybe there's some good signs. And then obviously this news comes out. And then today they just get spanked by Gamer Legion. And you're like, oh, that's tough. I will say, okay, we don't know who it's for yet. I think the people that are candidates that could be benched from FaZe are obviously Rain, obviously Carrigan, and obviously Jacob. These are the only guys it could even possibly be. If it's Frozen, if you are losing Frozen FaZe, just give up. Like, just give up now. I'd be done with you as a team, honestly. Frozen is their best player by far. They need to keep him. So it has to be one of these three guys. And funnily enough, we got an interview with Frozen, and I think it is somewhat revealing because it says here, he stayed tight-lipped on FaZe's upcoming roster change. Okay, totally understandable. And as he goes down, a couple of no comments before he gets asked about Jacob. And he says, honestly, I think Jacob's just going to do better with every tournament and every game. I mean, I don't think you'd say that if Jacob was getting benched, right? Like, that sounds like Jacob is staying to me. So it's got to be Carrigan or Rain. I think that's what most people assumed. I wasn't fully assuming that just because I know how Counter-Strike players can be. I know they respect the names, and I would not have been surprised if they were just like, sorry, Jacob, I know we just got you, but yeah, done. Like, honestly, they can do that sometimes, but it seems like that's not the case. So the question is, who is it going to be for? This is a tough one. This is a tough one because you look at the numbers, that's the Liquid numbers. Let's look at the FaZe numbers. Frozen, since this new roster has been made, fantastic. This is only over 15 maps for what it's worth, but I think it's still worth looking at. Brokey's actually picked up his form. Jacob came in and was initially looking a little shaky, but I think he's just got better and better. Like, these recent games, he's actually looking pretty good. I think he looks pretty promising. Rain and Carrigan. Rain hasn't even been all that bad. Like, considering his roles, this isn't terrible. It just feels like Carrigan is just a black hole of fragging on this team. An absolute black hole. It's tough, but at some point, it does kind of feel like it's too far gone. The obvious problem with that is, who would become in-game leader? I think the only option would be Rain, right? And I don't know if that actually helps, because Rain's stats already aren't great. They'll probably take a dip if he turns into an in-game leader, and you'll probably lose the potential of what Carrigan can bring you. So I would expect it to be Rain, maybe stepping down for a bit, maybe taking a bit of a break, maybe retiring, who knows? I would expect it to be Rain. But at the same time, like, I don't think there's a good long-term solution here. That's the thing that's scary. Like, at some point, FaZe are going to have to figure out switching in-game leader. And right now, it doesn't feel like they've got that long-term solution figured out. Maybe that's a job for the future, but still. Okay, I think on the Twistzz side of things, there's been a lot of talk. A lot of people not that happy with Twistzz coming in for this move. I can kind of get it, right? Because you look at Team Liquid, they were in a position where not only have they somewhat recently picked up Shuhei, but they've also somewhat recently actually got a new coach in Flashy, who was the former analyst of Na'Vi. So that was only a couple of months ago, and you kind of want to give him some time and wait to see if that coaching change will make a difference, because I look at this roster and it should not be as bad as it is, right? Like, you look down the list, Shuhei, I still think is a good in-game leader. I just think that it's not working on Liquid. Nuts, I still think this guy is great. I hope that he can get back to his best, even if he's not been in good form. Ultimate's okay as an AWPer. Twistzz is obviously great. And then you've got Naf, who had been in really, really bad form. Seems like he's picking it up slightly, but you'd still want to see a bit more from him. So I understand why people are annoyed at Twistzz. I think there has to be a middle ground here because, yeah, I think you can be annoyed at Twistzz, but you can also say it's just a weird scenario where generally you kind of don't want mid-season moves to happen because you want the whole season to really see if the team has a chance to reach a greater potential. But like, there's just no belief in this Liquid roster, right? There's just no belief. And it doesn't seem like bringing Flashy in has done enough. And to be honest, I think bringing Flashy in, who was the former analyst for Na'Vi, I just don't see this Liquid team ever playing like that, right? I think maybe he could instill some good discipline into the team, and that was needed. But the thing that they just look so sloppy a lot of the time, Liquid. And like, I don't see them all like listening to someone like Flashy, and I just didn't see that working, to be honest. And I think Twistzz honestly might have been part of that. Like, if he's not all in on this lineup, if he's not all in on Flashy as a coach, it's probably for the best. You just get rid at this point. I do see the frustration though, because he's definitely had a lot, and he's had a lot of sway and influence on this team. But I don't think that's fully his fault, right? Like, Liquid were the ones that were happy to give him that influence and that sway. They could have just got in a coach who was very respected and basically told Twistzz, like, no, you're not going to get away with this. I don't want you to switch to in-game leader. But they didn't do that. And so I think, to an extent, like, you can't just put all the blame on Twistzz for this. You have to put some of the blame on Liquid themselves, right? That's how it has to be. And I also do think, like, we don't know what Twistzz has been saying behind the scenes. Like, maybe he said, oh, when Flashy comes in, I want to stay. I want to prove that we can do it. And then he left. Like, who knows? But we don't know that. And from what I've seen, yeah, I think that Twistzz was maybe a bit too demanding, asking for a bit too much at times. But, like, you can't fault the guy for wanting to get out of Liquid. And he is still a really good player, right? That's the big thing. And I think he can fit in really nicely on this FaZe lineup. And I'm actually quietly excited about FaZe because whichever move happens, I think it can leave them in a pretty good spot, right? I think that the best option, honestly, for me, probably is keeping Karrigan, just because I know what he can do in the big tournaments. I know he's got that ability to call in the big moments, right? And you can't keep him for that much longer. Yeah, I know that. But even just think about the fact that, like, Karrigan is someone you would want to keep, even if it's just as he transitions into coaching. Because it feels like that should happen, right? Karrigan as a coach just makes sense. It just makes sense. And I feel like you want to keep him desperately while you bring a new in-game leader in who can learn a bit from Karrigan, who can slowly get up to speed. Or you could have an existing player transition later. Like, if Rain actually wanted to transition to in-game leading at some point or something like that, you want Karrigan there to help him, right? So I think long-term, you just have to keep Karrigan. You have to keep him, and you have to say, we're willing to go with you for as long as we think we can, but like at some point, we'll have to talk about if you want to switch to coaching, right? That's going to have to happen within the next few seasons. But I still think he could have it in him. I just think that Rain and Karrigan as a duo was firepower-wise not quite enough, and I think they knew that themselves by bringing Jacob in. Initially, I didn't think Jacob was going to be the answer. I still don't know if he necessarily is, but I think as long as you have Twistzz and Frozen performing great, which I have very few doubts about, and then you have Brokey, who seems to have found form recently, that can be enough, because Jacob then can be more of like a supportive piece. And we'll see how that goes, because I wouldn't be surprised if Jacob gets screwed out of some roles and just sort of sidelined a bit if Rain were to go. But I think that can work. I really do. And I think this gives FaZe like a bit of that magic back that you feel like they could go on a run. I actually do. You might think I'm crazy, but we've already seen them come like weirdly close at tournaments when their firepower was nowhere near good enough. You're going to have to hide Karrigan if that is the move that happens, but it could still work, right? I think that's the lower risk move than trying to switch like Rain to an in-game leader. I just don't know if I see that fully. I don't know if he strikes me as the kind of player who's going to be like, it's hard to know, but he doesn't strike me as the player that's like that involved in enough of the strategies and what's going on that he could switch to that as a role. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I could be wrong, but I don't know. Over on the Liquid side, it's a curious one. I actually think, by the way, if I were to say, okay, if Twistzz comes in for Rain, I actually think this is a team that competes for playoffs. I actually think this is a team that could really cause upsets against some top squads. Because just having that experience factor, especially at like majors, I think it could be a big deal. I actually think by the time we get to the major at the end of the year, I actually think this team would be scary. If it's Carrigan going, then it just is so up in the air. It's so hard to call. I would probably suggest that it wouldn't work that well. I think that you kind of struggle at the start, and then I don't know if the personalities, like someone like a Twistzz we've already seen, if he doesn't believe in something, he's going to be vocal about that. He's going to want to switch things up. I don't know if I'd fully see it. I guess at least you'd probably give it a bit of a better chance because he's worked with Rain before, but I don't know. I personally, my hunch is that wouldn't work, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, over on the Liquid side, what do you do? What do you do? I mean, Twistzz, like, on this lineup, he's kind of been the only player doing anything. In a weird way, maybe this is what they need to just change the energy of the team. The scary thing is, it feels like the obvious option is, yeah, you just go for a Liege. I mean, the problem with that is bringing a Liege into this environment, into a team that just feels like they are in a negative spiral. I don't know. It seems like from everything we've seen, a Liege is not the kind of person to turn around a team that's in that sort of state. If anything, like, he might get a bit frustrated. And he's also someone who moved to Europe specifically to try and chase greatness. And I look at this lineup, and if I'm him, I'd be scared of going back, right? Like, if you go back to this team and then they don't do well, I don't know. What are your options in Europe going to look like? It's hard to say. But I think it's the obvious move, and maybe that's just what ends up happening, because I don't see where else you go. And again, I've been saying, like, I think the pieces are here on this team. I don't know if Nafsad is best, but I still think Nurse, there's a really good player in there. And honestly, it might just be the case that Liquid are cursed and they're going to become the new, like, NIP where everyone who leaves them goes on to do good things. Because I guarantee you, Twistzz will do pretty well at FaZe. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost Nertz if he did quite well. Shuhei, I wouldn't be surprised if he went to another team if he started doing well. Like, it just seems like there's something off with Liquid on the whole. And it's hard to read why, but, like, something's got to change, man. Something has to change drastically. Like, the mentality of this team, like, they've got to start, I don't know, just looking a bit more locked in. It's just the amount of silly mistakes you see this team making is crazy. It's like more than anyone else. It's so odd. It's really, really strange. It's like hard to figure out, but yeah, they got to have something switch, because it's weird. I've liked a lot of the moves they've made and it hasn't worked. So I don't know, man. I feel like a Liege might come in and it might just not work that well. In theory, a Liege coming in should work quite well though, because I feel like you can get Nertz, who's happy to go aggressive sometimes, but quite likes lurking. You know, you can have a Liege as more of the entry player. I guess there's not really a player that would sacrifice for a Liege as well. That's maybe the one concern I would look at in this lineup. It would kind of have to be Shuhei, like hard entering and a Liege following him up. Maybe that could work. Maybe that could work. But I do think that the main surprise to me is this Liquid pickup of Flashy as their coach. I'm just not sure that makes sense to me. Like, with everything we've seen from this Liquid team, they do not feel like they're going to be capable of playing that intricate Na'Vi style, right? Like, that just doesn't seem like them, right? Maybe with Elise that changes, but I just don't feel like that's their path to success. I feel like they would have to be a little bit more of a looser team and just have good enough team play to back it up. So I'm not sure Liquid fully know what their identity is right now, and that's the scary thing. Right, that's the concern for me with the Liquid lineup. Just feels like for the longest time, they've kind of been floating about. Twistzz has been good. They've been doing what they can. There is also the question with Twistzz. Sometimes when a player switches to in-game leader and switches back, he struggles. I don't think that's the case with Twistzz. I kind of feel like he wasn't in-game leading for long enough, or he just wasn't all in on it enough and didn't really, like, change fully to forget how to be a star player. I feel like he still knows how to be a star. So I'm not worried for FaZe. I think it's a good move. I know people are frustrated, but I think it makes sense. I really do. I actually think that this is a good move for FaZe. Liquid, man, I don't know. You got to hope that something sorts them out, but it's not looking good, bruv. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you next time.